Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing well, and for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Divyanka and I'm a doctor of pharmacy here in the US. On this channel, I strive to provide both you and I with resources to help live our best and most productive life. In today's video, we are actually going to be talking about the drug development cycle, and I'm going to be giving you guys an overview of exactly what all of that is. First of all, I actually have an infographic resource for you guys. The infographic highlights the drug development cycle, and this image is really going to help you. So if you guys are interested in getting this image and just downloading it so you have it on your computer, and you can kind of course, look at it throughout this video, but kind of have it so you're always reminded of all the things I'm going to be talking about in this video. This infographic will be really helpful to kind of follow along through this video, and also for you visual learners out there. Also, just having this image probably saved so that you can reference it later on is probably helpful. The download link for this image is down in the description bar below and on the FocusRx website for you to find easily. Now, why? Why are we talking about the drug development cycle? Why is it important to know? First of all, if you work in healthcare, this is honestly just a good to know. You should probably know the drug development cycle, how a drug comes to market, what are the required steps to get something to approval, how long does this all take, all of that information. All that information is super helpful for anyone working in the healthcare industry. Now, specifically, if you work in the pharmaceutical industry or in any kind of role related to clinical trials, drug approvals, regulatory, etc., it is imperative that you know kind of what goes into the drug development process and all of that information. If you're going to be working in pharma, or again alongside some part of the drug development cycle, and if your whole career is in healthcare, you will honestly most likely work at different parts of the drug development cycle. So of course that's super important to know kind of where you fit into the big picture. And generally within pharma, this is actually a question that you can get asked in interviews. What phases of the drug development cycle have you worked in? What have your projects been in? And it's for something that people take pride in. If you can say that you've worked at different phases of the drug development process, that shows that you have broad experience, and most people like that. So again, just having knowledge of this in general is really important. The first step of the drug development process is research and discovery. At this stage of the process, you are right at the beginning, and this is where researchers are finding those molecules and compounds of drugs to test further to see if there's kind of anything there in terms of that drug being efficacious and safe for use in XYZ disease state. At this stage of the process, there are thousands and thousands of molecules and drug compounds that are being tested and potentially being sent for further testing. Now, within this step, once a sort of promising compound is identified, all the research that needs to be done to see if that drug will actually be efficacious is then done. So in regards to testing, you're going to be doing a lot of testing for the medication to assess how it's absorbed, distributed, metabolized, and excreted in your body, the potential benefits of the mechanism of action of the drug, the best dosage, the best route of administration, how it can interact with other drugs and treatments, etc. At this stage, you are of course super early on, and this is where that research component is happening. Step 2 of the process is preclinical research. This is where you're doing all of your in vivo, or also known as animal research, and in vitro testing, or also known as test tube research. So whichever molecules have been identified for further research, then undergo animal and lab testing to again find out all the information that they can in a preclinical setting. You're basically answering those basic questions on efficacy and safety in animals and in a test tube, again from what you can see. And you're going to use this data to then move forward to hopefully move into humans. So naturally, the next step is clinical research. Now, this is of course probably the most robust step of the process. This is of course where you get your phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. Phase 1 trials are done in a small number of healthy patients. usually to test safety. Then you have your phase 2, where you're actually going to have patients with the disease state that you're testing. And again, you're testing for safety and efficacy with probably more subjects than the phase 1 study. Then, of course, you move on to phase 3, which of course is to test and really make sure the efficacy and safety of the drug makes sense. And of course, in terms of clinical research and the importance of phase 3 trials, they are very, very important and are kind of the key, of course, to the next most important step. You can also have phase 4 studies, which are usually surveillance studies, so they can start at any point and can continue through after the drug is on the market. Phase 4 studies are usually long-term safety studies to make sure that you kind of have your eyes on, again, the safety profile of that drug. Now, of course, so much goes into the clinical phase of these studies. I am totally just doing an overview of this, so this is not comprehensive at all. But here is where a lot of your strategy comes in terms of designing your clinical trials, how you're gonna write the protocols for them to set yourself up in the best way possible to hopefully meet all your study endpoints, and then be able to move on to the next phase of the drug development process. Then, of course, if all of your studies and data are successful, you then file for approval to get your drug on the market. So there we kind of roll into the next step, and that is FDA review. So there's going to be a time where you actually submit the NDA paperwork with all the data from all your clinical trials, and there's going to be a review period before the drug can actually get on the market. After the drug is approved and on the market, then of course the next phase of the drug development process is post-marketing surveillance and safety monitoring and other such post-marketing activities. Now, in terms of where paperwork needs to be filed from a regulatory standpoint, an IND or an investigational new drug application must be submitted before clinical studies. After you have completed phase 3 studies, you then submit an NDA or BLA application to get the drug approved by the FDA to then be able to be marketed as a product. NDA stands for New Drug Application, and the BLA is basically the NDA but for any biologic drug. So overall, those are the two big regulatory milestones in terms of the drug development process. And of course, within the different timelines and the overall drug development process, there are of course other regulatory milestones and submissions you have to hit. Now, in terms of time, overall, the drug development process can take 10 to 20 years from basic research and initiation to getting the drug approved and being on the market. The first phase, so the basic research, the in vivo and in vitro testing, etc., can take anywhere between 3 to 6 years, and that's on an expedited calendar. 3 to 6 years is definitely best case scenario for a successful product, but this can of course span to as long as needed. Now, the next phase, human testing or clinical trials, can range anywhere between 6 to 8-ish years, but again, it can really depend on the overall program and how those studies actually go. Then for the data review and actually getting approval, it takes about 1/2 to 2 years, again, depending on what activities happen there with the FDA, if there's a back and forth, if it's a smooth process versus not, just really depends. And then, of course, the surveillance portion of the drug development process lasts for the lifetime of that asset. So overall, it is not an easy process to get a drug approved, and it can take upwards of 20, 30 years to get something from, again, basic research to approval. This is a really long and tedious process. And again, this was a basic overview that I hope helped you guys kind of understand the different steps within the drug development process. But each step is so complicated, and I definitely couldn't talk about all of that or know about all of that. But again, at least a basic understanding of the drug development process is incredibly important. And so I hope this kind of allowed you guys to create that foundational knowledge about the drug development process. And then again, in future videos, we can kind of dive deeper into the different aspects, and you can of course do more research to learn more. So overall, that is the drug development process for creating a drug and getting it to market. When I had my first internship in a pharmaceutical company, this was one of the first things that I had to learn to, of course, then understand where my work really fell into the big picture of things. I hope this video was helpful for you guys as always. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to comment them below or reach out via email. If you guys found this video helpful, do give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. That is a wrap for today's video, and as always, you guys will see me in the next one.